In this tutorial, I want to return to the subject of basic editing techniques and talk about the track tools. These are the tools that are displayed at the left-hand side of the editor panel. In episode 1, when I described the Hitfilm user interface, I purposely didn't describe these. To do so would have made the tutorial longer than it need be. In episode 3, I described one of them, the Track Select tool, because it was a necessary tool for the editing I was carrying out. I decided to revert back to a description of these tools because they will prove useful when carrying out more complex editing procedures. I'll start at the top of the list of tools and work downwards. Before I start though, it's worth reviewing how clips behave when they're added to the timeline. There are 4 ways of adding clips to the timeline from the media panel. They can be added by selecting the clip, then clicking on either of these 2 icons. The Insert Clip icon will place the clip on the timeline, starting at the playhead. If the playhead is on an existing event, that event will be split at the playhead and the clip will be inserted at that point. The remainder of the existing event will be pushed to the right and attached to the inserted event. This mode can also be achieved by selecting the clip in the media panel and pressing B. The Overlay Clip icon also places the clip starting at the playhead, but it will replace the existing event for the duration of the clip. This mode can also be achieved by selecting the clip in the media panel and pressing M. The third method transfers the clip to the timeline by selecting it and using either of the 2 keyboard shortcuts. Note that the same rules apply using this method. Method 4 involves simply selecting the appropriate clip in the media panel, then dragging it onto the timeline. This transfers the clip in overlay mode, so it replaces any existing media event starting at where the clip is dropped. The Selection tool is used to perform many actions while editing. Media events on the timeline can be selected and moved. However, note that moving a media event over another media event will trim that event to accommodate the move. Events can also be trimmed on the timeline. With this tool selected, all the enabled controls in the editor panel can be activated, such as the new clip icon. More about this in a future tutorial. The lock, hide and mute icons, which I described in episode 1. You use this tool to move the viewing area of the timeline about. The slice tool is used for splitting media events. By default, both video and audio elements of the event will be split. If the event is unlinked, only the element under the slice icon is split. This is one of the tools whose function is a little difficult to understand. You use it on a trimmed clip to move the trimmed duration within the original clip, but without moving the event. To make it easier to understand, I have a 10-second clip on the timeline that shows a change of number at 1-second intervals. I've trimmed 2 seconds off either end to remove the numbers 1, 2, 9 and 10. So, if I play this trimmed clip, it will play the numbers 3 to 8. To use this tool, you click on the event and drag it either left or right. Imagine that the event length is a window on the original clip length. Dragging left with the tool will move the original clip to the left, and doing so exposes the number 9 and 10 in the window. You'll see two displays in the viewer as you drag. The one on the left displays the video frame at the trim in point and displays the time value with respect to the original clip. The one on the right displays the trim out point with its associated time value. The time value in the middle displays the amount of movement made with each dragging operation. For instance, if I drag and let go, then drag again, the value will reset to 0. The polarity of the value shows the direction of movement. Dragging right with the tool will move the original clip to the right, exposing the numbers 1 and 2 in the window. Note that the act of dragging is performed on the original clip, so the event stays in the same place on the timeline. The function of the slide tool is even more difficult to understand. To be honest, I struggle to understand it myself, but I'll do my best to explain it. Basically, you use it to move a selected trimmed event within a number of trimmed events on the timeline, either left or right. Events before and after the selected event have their in and out points changed to accommodate the move. To demonstrate the tool, I'll use the same 4 media events. I've created 2-second in and out points on all 4 events. I'll select the tool and move the green event. The in and out points of the green event don't move, shown by the top window in the viewer. The out point of the blue event changes to allow for the movement of the green event. This is shown by the bottom left window and bottom left time display in the viewer. At the same time, the in point of the red event changes, shown by the bottom right window and the bottom right time display. The bottom middle time display in the viewer displays the time displacement during the current movement. The polarity indicates the direction of the movement. Situations where the tool's function can get frustrating is where one or more of the events are untrimmed. If you try and move an event away from an untrimmed event, it will refuse to move. You'll be trying to move the event away from the untrimmed event's in point, which is at the beginning of the untrimmed event. If that doesn't make sense, I'll try to make it clear with a demonstration. Using 2 of the events on the timeline, I'll untrim them both. Now, I can move the red event to the right because I'll be increasing the trim in point of the yellow event. However, if I attempt to move it to the left, it refuses to move. This is because the trim in point of the yellow event is already at the start and can't be moved further left than that. Similarly, I can move the yellow event to the left but can't move it to the right. I hope that explanation has made it clearer. We're into less complex territory now. Basically, the Ripple Edit tool allows you to trim events on the timeline and maintain the relative positions of adjacent events. Again, a demonstration will make it clear. See how the yellow event moves left to fill the gap made by trimming the red event? This time the red event maintains its position relative to the green event, and the yellow event moves left to compensate for the red event being shortened. Another tricky one to get your brain around. This tool is used to simultaneously change the out and in points of adjacent events without moving them. I'll use the yellow and red events to demonstrate this. The red event has a 2-second trim out and the yellow event has a 2-second trim in. Now, if I hold the mouse over the join of the two events, it changes to the Roll Edit tool pointer. When this happens, I can click and move either left or right. If I move to the left, the out point of the red event and the in point of the yellow event are moved in unison. The events don't move, only their trim points move. The opposite happens if I move the join to the right. Note that you can't move further than the trim points in either direction. This tool is used to change the playback speed of an event. With it selected, simply drag either end of an event to change its in or out point, and therefore its speed. As you drag, a label appears displaying the change in duration and the new duration. I'll play this event and you'll see that now the counter interval is 2 seconds. Unfortunately, there's no indication that a rate change has been applied to an event. When you've rate changed an event and need to get back to normal editing, it's important to switch from the Rate Stretch tool. There's no indication that you're in rate stretch mode other than the tools icon being highlighted. You may inadvertently rate stretch other events and not notice. Another way of changing the speed of an event is to right-click it and choose Speed Duration from the context menu. In the dialog box that opens, there are two parameters. Their function is obvious. One changes the speed and the other the duration. What's not so obvious is that the functions change depending on the state of the chain link icon. By default, the link is intact, which means that changing either of the parameters changes the other one. In this case, I increase the duration to 20 seconds, resulting in a speed reduction, 50%. I'll reset the speed to 100%. This changes the event's duration back to 10 seconds. I'll now break the chain link. Now, if I change the speed to 50%, the duration stays at 10 seconds. I'll play the event again. This time, because the event length hasn't changed, the counter only goes to 5. I dealt briefly with the track select tool in episode 3, when I dealt with the basic editing techniques. Just to recap though, by default this tool allows an event and all events to its right to be moved right on the timeline together. Notice the double arrow cursor pointing right. If you click and hold the tool icon, you can select the Track Select Back option. You can also switch modes by pressing Shift+A. Now, if I try to move the green event to the left, I can't do it. That's because the blue event can't go any further left. I can now move the green event and take the blue event with it. Notice how only the events affected by the move are highlighted. That's the main editing tools described. There are just 3 more icons at the bottom that I want to mention. The Settings icon. Selecting this displays the current project setting and allows you to modify them if necessary. The Sync scrolling icon. By default, video and audio tracks can be scrolled independently in a vertical direction. If you have multiple video and audio tracks in your project, it can sometimes be difficult to see a particular event's audio component. Enabling sync scrolling synchronizes the video and audio timelines so that scrolling one automatically scrolls the other in the opposite direction. Enable snapping, keyboard shortcut Shift+S. This tool is usually enabled by default. When enabled, it ensures that an event, when moved to another event, will snap to it, leaving no gap. Events will also snap to the playhead. There are two more commands that can be very useful during editing. These are ripple delete clip and ripple delete gap, and are both accessible from the right-click context menu. The ripple delete clip command will delete the currently selected event and move all events after it to the left to fill in the gap. If there are events on other tracks, these will be moved also. Note though that the move may not be complete if it means that events on other tracks obstruct the move. The ripple delete gap command allows a selected gap on a particular track to be deleted. The gap is selected by right-clicking when the mouse pointer is over the gap to be deleted. Selecting ripple delete gap from the context menu will delete that gap, moving all events after it on all tracks left, closing the gap. Note that the ripple delete option may not be available, it will be greyed out. This will happen if the gap deletion means that events on other tracks obstruct the move. So that's the track tools dealt with in detail. Some are pretty straightforward, some are really difficult to get your brain around. I hope that I've demystified those difficult tools so that you can use them to make your editing more efficient. Join me next time, if you can, when I'll be elevating the level of this series, starting with an introduction to composite shots. Until then, bye for now.